don't have a gavel, so we'll open the meeting for Tuesday, April 3rd of the Washington County Open Space and Regional Parks Commission. First item is pledge, or roll call, excuse me.
Carissa Teixeira.
Thomas Quinn.
Matthew Weber.
Christopher Nenzel.
Nathan Day.
Doug Doolittle.
Michael Larson, the Washington County District Attorney's Office.
Nate, do you want to lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item 3, public comments. I have no public comments. That's the first. Item 4, approval of the agenda for the Open Space and Regional Parks Commission meeting of April 3rd, 2018. Any comments on the agenda?
I'll move to approve the agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Item 5, approval of the minutes for the Open Space and Regional Parks Commission meeting of March 6, 2018. Any questions on the minutes?
I would recommend that we just hold off until the next meeting since we just got these a minute ago.
Mr. Chairman, Michael Larson on behalf of the DA's office. I think that's appropriate since we just received the minutes. Technically, you don't have to wait until next meeting if you've had a fair and full opportunity to review them. My recommendation is just to feed the lines to the open meeting law, is to put it off until next meeting. There's no reason to expedite that.
And we don't need a motion to do that. We just,
We'll just instruct staff to put this on the agenda for next.
okay. That's what we'll do. Thank you. Item number 6, acknowledgement and recognition of park operations staff for their outstanding service and contributions to Washoe County. No staff this month to recognize? Or is there? You did? Okay. Item 7, review, discussion, and possible recommendations, Board of County Commissioners regarding the proposed water, gas, and sewer lines and emergency vehicle access alignment by KDH Builders on APN 534-450-05, commonly known as Sugarloaf Peak Open Space and Trail System.
Good afternoon, Dennis Troy, Park Planner with Washoe County for the record. Back in February, the county received a parkland easement application for up near the Sugarloaf Peak trail system. Just to give you a quick little history of where that is so you have your bearings. The Sugarloaf Peak Trail System stretches kind of from the west to the east to a larger parcel that encompasses Sugarloaf Peak. It is bounded to the north by Donovan Ranch, by the Donovan Ranch subdivision. And then what we're seeing to the south of it is lots of new subdivisions and developments coming in. That arrow is actually pointing to directly the easement request that we have before us today. The Blackstone Estates subdivision is approximately a 200-home subdivision that was approved by the Planning Commission. I'll have to defer to the applicant on that, but I want to say about 6 to 8 months ago. As part of this application, the Planning Commission recommends a number of different conditions of approval. Some of them that we request are trail connections. Other things are related to utilities, specifically water, sewer, gas, and emergency vehicle access. This easement request is for exactly that, an emergency vehicle access point, water, gas, and sewer lines. Like I said, these were specifically conditions of the Planning Commission that they put on this tentative map approval. In order for the applicant to move forward with their tentative map and file for a final map and actually sell off these homes, they need to meet all their conditions of approval. This easement request is for a piece of property that's about 30 feet wide, which encompasses the width of the emergency vehicle access, and it's about 70 feet deep, I guess you could say, which is essentially the width of the Sugarloaf Peak Trail parcel right there. The Sugarloaf Peak Trail is actually constructed of decomposed granite right now, ranges in width from 8 to 10 feet. This, like I said, is at the westernmost portion of the access. The road that the applicant has proposed can be constructed with an aggregate base, and so it won't interfere all that much with the trail system. The emergency vehicle access kind of serves two purposes. Not only does it allow for the emergency services should they need to go down there, but it also acts, in a sense, as a pedestrian access point for the new subdivision to hop onto the trail system. So here is Blackstone Estates. I wasn't able to tweak this all this much, but on the left-hand side, it kind of shows the easement alignment. That's actually to the north. And you can see, like I said, it's a 30-foot based access road, and then underneath it, you'll see the sewer, water, and gas lines. So about 2,100 square feet. There is the approximate location of where it will go. And here's actually a picture of out in the field of what it actually looks like. So. The applicant's representative is also here. Should you guys have any questions, he'd be more than happy to ask them. With that being said, the next steps, you can choose to identify any sort of additional mitigation measures, if applicable. This is per the Parkland easement policy. Or you can choose to provide a recommendation to the board as you feel appropriate. Our recommendation, staff's recommendation, is to move to recommend to the Board of County Commissioners to approve the sale of the water, gas, and sewer lines and emergency vehicle access easement totaling about 2,100 square feet by KDH Builders on the specific parcel crossing the Sugarloaf Peak open space parcel per the Parkland easement policy. If you have any questions, please let me know. The next steps in the process would be to go out there and have a third-party appraiser assess the value of the property, and then also prepare a legal description of it such that the easement could be granted to them. From staff's perspective, this is a pretty low-use area of the trail, minimal impacts of it. We aren't recommending any sort of further mitigation at this point other than essentially having them pay essentially the assessment of the property value for it. So, thank you.
Commissioners, any questions?
Is that basically right at the western trailhead?
That is correct. It is at the western trailhead. The trail, when I was out there the other day, somewhat fizzles out on the westernmost portion. This is the western access point.
As the construction company is working on it, will it likely impede or close that trailhead?
No, that will not be closed.
Or is the construction company planning on paving a path for the emergency access vehicles from the end of that court to the other side, or are they going to leave that dirt?
So the specifically the emergency vehicle access point that we're talking about, it can be constructed of an all-weather surface, and that's what we're recommended. Truckee Meadows Fire typically prefers that it be paved. However, you can put in an all-weather surface. We requested that they put in an all-weather surface. Okay.
And you mentioned that this is a fairly low-use trail. So you would think this would have very minimal impact to the people in that area?
That is correct. The further west that you go on the trail system, the fewer users you see.
There are other trailheads as well?
That is correct. To the east, let me back up a little bit.
Sure.
To the east, let's see if I have a better one. You can see the Donovan Ranch subdivision kind of being, let's see if there's a pointer on here. Oh, boy.
Sorry.
No worries. Oh, boy, is that going to work?
It's on the ceiling now.
If you turn around, the Donovan Ranch subdivision, which is being built down here, is actually providing 2 other trail connectors down here.
Okay.
And then as last I heard, there is another subdivision in the works for right here. And that trail, or this subdivision will also be required to tie in a connector.
And I guess just my last question, are there any alternatives to connecting these services? Just curious.
I would have to defer to the builder, but my assumption would be no.
Okay. That's all the questions I had.
Thanks.
Nate?
So this is a fairly large subdivision, and there's a whole bunch of other subdivisions going in here. What is this builder doing to develop new parks in this area? Are there any planned parks?
So the developer will be contributing, let's see, about $240,000 into that local tax district through the residential construction tax. They're also providing an internal trail system that'll tie into this. But other than allocating, actually, I'm going to have to defer to Carl on this because I believe that there is actually a requirement that they do need to put in a neighborhood park with passive and active uses in it. So yes, they do.
Right.
Thanks for coming
Well,
up.
Go ahead.
that's the question, because it looks to me like the nearest park to this is Gator Swamp Park, which is not accessible. I mean, it's pretty far away, and this is just another example of one of those things where I'd like to see what this park is going to be and what the amenities are going to be. This is a great example of the housing boom is happening. This is happening right before us, and this is where I'm concerned that the people that are going to be moving into that neighborhood are not going to have the park amenities that they're going to expect. And clearly, the residential construction tax doesn't even come close to covering the cost of building parks. This is a great opportunity for the developers to show that they are committed to the community and build a good quality park, right?
Right. Which is, and I'm going to, this is Carl Matzel with KDH Builders and Axion Engineering, and he can go into it a little bit more in depth. But there was a condition of approval on this tentative map that, like I said, that they did need to provide an active use and passive recreation facilities on site. You can actually see that in the open space parcel right here. So there will be park elements in there for the subdivision. So.
Yeah, and we're working with Dennis to figure out what amenities are going into there. I mean, I don't know exactly how to use this thing. Oop, dude, see?
We figured it out.
Oh, there we go. You want to go back to that picture? Anyways, we're working with Dennis to figure out what amenities go into the park. There's a lot of connectivity. Ooh, that map. And then you see the open space in the upper right corner? All that's going to be, we'll have connectivity to the trail, to Sugarloaf Trail on the north end through the east boundary up there, and then where it says open space in the middle, that's going to be an active passive park. We're in discussions with the county right now. I think you guys are updating your regional parks plan, is that correct? And we're going to figure out whether or not this is going to be a park that'll be one of them, or how it's going to fit into that. And then once we figure that out, then we're going to go ahead and construct the park.
Great.
So there's going to be, it'll all connect in, and that'll be a passive park.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, could you just quickly define the difference between an active and a passive park area?
I can't. I'm an engineer. I don't know. Dennis knows.
Sure. Dennis Troy for the record. An active use park is something where you're going to see active uses on it, playground equipment, exercise equipment and whatnot. A passive use is going to be typically a turf area where somebody can have a picnic and quieter activities, if you will.
So So that I understand the size of it, can you, because spatially, I don't always figure these things out from the size of lots. Could you compare the size of the open space to the south of that map to the size of a baseball diamond for me? Is it about a quarter or half the size of a baseball diamond?
Gosh, I should have brought my maps.
Sorry?
That open space, I'm going to guess we'll probably have about 2 acres in there of active and passive park.
Okay.
And that other piece is about 2,000 square feet, is that correct, Dennis?
Correct.
Yeah, the easement's about 2,000 square feet.
Okay, any other questions, Commissioner?
Yeah, I see that you're dealing with Tumwall with the water and then county for the sewer. Has this gone in front of each one of those for approval, or?
Right now, we're in the final design. We've been in discussions with the county. That connection is the only connection for sewer. We sewer from south to north, and there's an existing sewer line in Donovan Ranch. That's the only sewer in the area, and that's the only connection that we have. So that's, we've been talking to the county on that. County Utilities is good with it. Tumwa is good with it. That's going to be a secondary secondary resource because we need redundancy in the water. So we'll have redundancy from Donovan Ranch, and then we're bringing the water line up Caladela Platte on the south side. So there'll be 2 sources of water,
And then,
and that's a requirement.
yeah, and then is Tumwall or the county requiring the access to be paved, or is it just going to be DG, or?
As long as it's an all-weather access, we're good with that. It
Okay.
originally was going to be paved, but Dennis and I worked it out to where we can go ahead and do an all-weather surface. Apparently it fits in a little bit better with the trail.
Great, thank you.
To that point, and I don't know what staff thinks about this, but this is a great opportunity to build an ADA accessible flat trail. Clearly, you're not going to build it all the way up to the top of Sugarloaf. That would be crazy. But on that flat part, I mean, there's what, a mile and a half or so of trail that's flat. And if you're already in there with heavy equipment and you're paving around the area, this would be a great opportunity to create an ADA accessible trail for all the folks that are out there who can't use the DG surface. Just 2 cents. Thanks.
I have a couple of questions. One, is that going to be an open easement or a gated easement?
It'll be gated for traffic and open to the public.
With a pedestrian gate?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there won't be any motorized vehicles. There's no motorized vehicles on any of that trail.
Okay. Okay, and I guess you haven't had the appraisal yet, as you said, so that once you get the appraisal, then you'll present that information back to the county board?
Correct. Once we have the appraisal by an agreed-upon third-party appraiser, then that will go in front of the Board of County Commissioners.
And what I heard earlier was that you will put about 240,000 or 24,000
Excuse me one second. How many homes?
into the park construction tax?
There's 159 homes.
Okay, so it's actually 159 homes, so it'll be $159,000
Okay.
will go into that park district.
And that would be put directly in the fund, so the construction of any active or passive park would be on the builder, in addition to the PCT parks?
They can actually request to use that residential construction tax for neighborhood park elements
Right.
within their subdivision. As Carl alluded to earlier, we're in the middle of actually starting the public process right now for the Washoe County Parks Master Plan. One of those things that we'll actually be doing and soliciting feedback from the public is to what are their priorities? Are they neighborhood parks? Are there regional facilities? From there, we'll then determine whether or not we actually want to invest into this or into Gator Swamp or Eagle Canyon.
Well, that's why I asked the question, because in the park construction tax, that goes into a larger district, obviously, not just this development.
Correct.
And I guess I assume that you're building a playground with a tot element, and that was going to be separate from any contribution to the PCT, but that's not as clear as I hear anyhow.
We really need to go through the Washoe County Parks Master Plan process to figure out
Right.
where our priorities need to be before we can commit to building something here.
Commissioner?
Last point is just, so 149 units, $149,000 from the residential construction tax. That's enough to pay for the surfacing and maybe one element in a playground. And that you're not even going to get close to a restroom facility or more elements. And I just want to make that point clear because it's clearly a structural problem we have with the law where we're not even coming close to, I mean, I appreciate the developers and, you guys building all these things. I feel like somewhat it's incumbent upon you guys to help create this park, give people in this neighborhood a facility that they can use, because clearly the law is just not doing it, and it's not sufficient.
Right now, the way the condition is written, the developer is responsible for the construction of the park in whole. We are working with Dennis and trying to use the residential construction tax created for a portion of that money. Whether or not that comes to fruition is, soon to be found. But right now, we're building that park.
That's great. I'm really glad to hear that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Somebody want to make a motion? Commissioner?
I'll go ahead and make a motion. I move to recommend to the Board of County Commissioners to approve the sale of a water, gas, and sewer line emergency vehicle access easement totaling 2,100 square feet plus or minus by KDH Builders on APN 534-45005, commonly known as Sugarloaf Peak Open Space, and per the Parkland easement policy.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you.
Item 8, Parks reports.
Good afternoon. For the record, Colleen Wallace Barnum, Parks Operations Superintendent. We didn't get to do this last meeting, so I thought I'd take some time and go through some updates for you. We are in our 23rd year. We just closed out our 23rd year of our Coming from the Cold series, and we had great average attendance for the program. The last program was just last Saturday, so we wrapped that up. Gardening in Nevada classes, we co-sponsor that with the University of Nevada's Cooperative Extension, and they do gardening classes. We've had great attendance for that as well. They even want to look into doing some fall gardening classes, which I think would be fun to add to our programming series. Just a couple things, recreation leagues started, so you'll start seeing ball fields getting used out there. March 1st was the beginning of their permitting season, so they'll be out there minus snow and days that we can't be using those fields. Interviews have begun for seasonal positions, so you'll start seeing some new faces out there with Washoe County uniforms on. The second annual, I think it's the third annual, Nate, Healthy Parks, Healthy People Fun Run is coming up on April 21st at Rancho San Rafael Park. So if you can participate in that, will help one of our partners, Turkey Meadows Parks Foundation. A couple things for the museum. The Hall of Heroes exhibit has been extended. It's going to be through April 22nd. I have passes for all of you, so don't run out of here too quick, because I'll make sure I get those to you. But yeah, to April 22nd, Sunday, April 22nd, will be open for that exhibit. And we had one night, county night for county employees. We had about 152 people attend. They're hoping to do one more before this series, the Hall of Heroes, ends. And I think that's about all I have. Lots of happenings. We do have the greenhouse is in full swing. I'm not sure if I was able to tell you. I wasn't able to tell you last month, but they actually reached out to 12 different schools from Washoe County School District. They started some seedlings. They have about 1,300 seedlings up in the greenhouse, and they're going to be. They repotted them into 4-inch pots and allowing them to grow a little bit longer. And then the schools that have some type of community garden will come and get those and start their gardens, which is awesome. So it's really good, again, cooperative partnership with the school district on the use of the greenhouse. And there are a lot of updates for the planning report, so I'm going to bring up Cheryl and Dennis because they have quite a few updates as well.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Cheryl Surface, Natural Resource Planner. We haven't done highlights for quite a while, so we thought we'd take the opportunity to update you and get any questions you have on the numerous projects Dennis and I are working on. We have a partnership with the Arrow Creek HOA, the Homeowners Association, and also the Friends of Arrow Creek, which is the golf course, to do an additional fuels reduction project in the Arrow Creek open space that Washoe County owns. So that's a collaborative partnership between the three, the nonprofit, the HOA, and Washoe County. So I think it's the first one ever, and it'll be a template for moving forward with other HOAs that may so desire to have that kind of work done. We have a contract in place to have management with that. All three of us are hiring the same manager, and we'll be hiring the same contractor to do the work. So we'll have continuity and consistency throughout that project. That's beginning already on the Arrow Creek HOA property. Once they'll just keep moving ownership to ownership. So HOA first, Friends of Arrow Creek, and then Washoe County Open Space will be the third and final component of that project. Ballardini Ranch Trail Connection. As you know, we acquired that final little piece of the Ballardini Ranch that we so desired from way back in the early days, probably that goes way back to the 1980s here in Washoe County. So happy to have that. We do have a trails plan in place. We've been working collaboratively with the Forest Service, who is our adjacent property owner to that Arrow Creek, to the Ballardini open space we have. The connection between Ballardini Ranch Trailhead and Thomas Creek, that connection has been completed to the Forest Service parcel. We'll be installing a bridge across one of the irrigation ditches this spring, and then we're working with the Forest Service to continue that trail to the Thomas Creek Trailhead on Forest Service property. Currently, it drops down to a road, which isn't really a good use of that road, and it's not a really wonderful trail as well. So trying to get it up onto the Forest Service. And then in addition to that, working with the Forest Service on doing some environmental work to continue the connection from that Ballardini Ranch Trailhead going north into the Collin Ranch area and then on to our Hunter Creek trailhead, Michael D. Thompson at Hunter Creek. Speaking of Michael D. Thompson at Hunter Creek, the bridge across Hunter Creek is here. It should be going in fairly soon. Really excited to finally get a bridge across that creek. I think that's been a project on my plate for 10 years. And then also we'll be doing some trail maintenance from the trailhead down to the steamboat ditch on that property that we have in there. So super excited on that. Bowers Mansion, we have some WC1 money and some endowment money to continue work on Bowers Mansion. That old facility just always needs update and always needs work. So we hired Melvin Green and Associates, who we've utilized before, to produce a plan and come up with some bid documents for us to use. We're meeting with Mel next week. He's got a draft plan in place, but we need to put that in some documents that we can actually take and get a contractor to do the work. So hoping to get that moving forward. Either it'll be late summer, early fall, I would anticipate. Mel's plate's pretty full, so I'm kind of pushing him to get that going. Eastern Sierra Trails Coalition, still going strong. They're working on a trails plan and a trails map for the Truckee Meadows area. There's a lot of collaboration between agency partners and nonprofits on that trail mapping component, and then inclusive of Carson City and Douglas County. So across the whole Eastern Sierra, all the way down to Markleyville, pretty much all the way up to Susanville. And when people hear about this collaborative partnership we've put together, they want to jump on board. It's just an opportunity to have more strength in our voice. When we work together in partnership, the strength of that voice is increased significantly. So working on that, there's a meeting this week on the mapping partnership for that Eastern Sierra Trails Coalition, so it continues to move forward. FEMA flood projects go to board for board approval April 24th. We have 3 FEMA flood projects. We broke it down into 3 kind of distinct different projects. We have the Swan Lake project, which continues to be flooded every time we get a significant rain event. So we're going to hold off on that. I think we've got some other components we need to look at on that Swan Lake project, but we do have a contractor that will go to before the Board of County Commissioners to reinstall some of the walkways that we have in there, to redo the trail system. And then we also lost some docking, so we need to replace a couple of the dock pieces that we have out in Swan Lake. Then we have the trail component to the FEMA projects. Lots of our trails were damaged, some of them more significant than others. So we do have Sierra Trail Works who should be going through the board to get that approval, to go to contract with them to do our trail work on those FEMA projects. And then thirdly, the last FEMA project we have includes park projects. So it's mainly park infrastructure. We lost a lot of our asphalt, we lost driveways, we lost entrances. So just coming back in, putting asphalt in place, decomposed granite, gravel, so kind of spread them out into 3 different projects. That'll be 3 different contractors. So we went through the bidding process, got a lot of bids for the projects, and so we're hoping to award those, like I said, on April 24th. Galena Joy Lake Callahan Fuels Project, that's another cooperative effort between Washoe County and the Nevada Division of Forestry. Nevada Division of Forestry will be heading up that project. Just met with Anna Higgins from NDF last week, and she's hoping to get clearance with the HOA. It's a combination between the homeowners associations in Washoe County. We have a significant piece of open space in there in the Joy Lake area along the Galena Creek corridor, and we'll be doing work on both Washoe County open space and the HOA open space. We did a fuels reduction project in there in 2008. It just needs to be touched up. Some areas didn't get any treatment, so Anna and her NDF crews will be going through there and reducing the fuel loading. All the fuels that we'll be removed off-site, so we won't be doing any pile burning in that area, which we did before with huge success, but NDF will be removing those fuels from the project site. So hoping to get that started. Anna was thinking even this month, April, we might be able to get crews in there to start doing that. The North Valleys Trail Project, what a thrilling project we have going up there. So this has been also on the books for a really long time. North Valleys is getting what I'm going to consider one of the premier trails in that location. We did the North Valleys Flat Fields. So this is a recreation trails project. The trails are nearly completed. We're in the process of installing the second bridge. So 2 bridges, an armored rock crossing. It's really nice, and it's got beautiful views, outstanding trail construction. Just kind of finishing up the last components of that, doing an additional trail between the flat fields and the trailhead parking area so that people who are at watching a game or doing that can then get down to the trail head itself and participate in the trails. Got a lot of local residents using that trail already, and so it's coming along quite nicely. That project will be completed by the end of June this year, so wrapped up and done. Hopefully we'll have a grand opening on that one. Tahoe East Shore Trail, also known as the State Line to State Line Bikeway, another one of the big collaborative projects that Washoe County is involved in. The North Demonstration Project from Incline to Sand Harbor will be completed fall 2018. A project that everybody said could never happen is miraculously coming to fruition. The last components of that project, you'll see a lot of asphalt between Incline and Sand Harbor. We've got a significant bridge component to that. So this summer, the bridges will be constructed and dropping the bridges in place with cranes. So large project. Also, working on now doing the environmental assessment for the next 8-mile segment. So these are working simultaneously. The next 8-mile section will be between Sand Harbor and Spooner. So the alignment will be in collaboration with IVGID's sewer, I'm not supposed to say sewer, affluent transport line. So they're gonna put their affluent transport line underneath the bikeway facility. So they've got about $13 million to add to the project. So that's a wonderful partnership, including we're also going to do some high fiber optic underneath the bikeway as well, get that sourced into incline. So it's just moving along, and I can't wait to see when that opens and how the use is going to be up there. The one component of that project that Washoe County is really involved in is the relocation of the shoulder side parking along SR 28 to safe parking locations. So currently, we have 3 parking facilities along SR 28. If you know where the old Ponderosa Ranch is, those parking facilities are on the NDOT right-of-way between SR 28 and the Ponderosa Ranch. So we'll relocate that shoulder side parking along 28 to those safe parking locations. There'll be the opportunity for visitors and residents to take either the pathway or to take public transportation that will pick you up at those parking facilities and drop you off at different locations along SR 28. And they will be serviced by a parking program. So we've got a parking program that we're looking at right now that if it's successful, it'll be used throughout Lake Tahoe, and that'll include paid parking. That paid parking will go into a maintenance fund that then Washoe County will be able to tap into for the operations and maintenance of those parking facilities. So we have agreed to operate and maintain those parking facilities, and then we will be able to access those funds in order to do that maintenance. So really a lot of moving parts and pieces here, but exciting, that Washoe County's on board with that. And then lastly, I want to talk a little bit about the Truckee River, the One Truckee River Plan and Project. So we just, on March 27th, the Board of County Commissioners approved our second agreement with the One Truckee River Project for a $300,000 SQ1 grant. They previously had an SQ1 grant to do the planning portion of the One Truckee River. Part of that plan is completed. And now we've offered $300,000 of Truckee River SQ1 funding to start implementing that plan. So Alicia was in the office today signing that agreement. So we'll go forward with implementing that One Truckee River plan. Washoe County has many members that are on both the stakeholder and the technical advisory group. And so we're collaborating with another one of those wonderful partnerships and collaborations that we're involved in to make the Truckee River one of the gems of our area. So with that, last thing. Resource management plans. We're working with NDF, Nevada Division of Forestry, to do resource management plans for both our Galena Regional Park and our Davis Creek Regional Park. Those are our most heavily forested regional parks. We've been doing a lot of fuels work in there in collaboration with the Nevada Division of Forestry, but we don't have a resource management plan for either one of those parks. And we really need to get one of those in place so that we can prioritize projects moving forward and be eligible for additional money and funding for doing our fuels projects in those parks. So that's the last thing for me, and I'll turn it over to Dennis. Thank you. And then I'll take questions after Dennis does his presentation.
Thanks, Cheryl. For the record, Dennis Troy, Park Planner. Quick updates on some park construction. Galena Terrace Park should be going out to bid tomorrow. This is kind of a pocket park in the Galena Terrace Rolling Hills neighborhood. Also park related, Martin Luther King Jr. Park should be under construction within the next couple of weeks. That's going to be providing rubberized fall protection surfacing underneath an existing piece of equipment. So we'll get that into compliance. Another really exciting project that we're still kind of in the planning phases is the upper playground at Rancho San Rafael. We have about $500,000 of county money set aside, and we'll be constructing an inclusive playground there for all abilities. And we are actually in discussions with a couple private entities about providing about another $300,000 to that project, so we can really make it this statement facility and kind of the gem of the Truckee Meadows as far as playgrounds go. So that's a really neat and exciting project. We're targeting late summer, fall construction for that project. So almost $1 million playground. It's going to be really neat. Also playground related, South Valleys Regional Park, we received a Land and Water Conservation Fund grant for that playground about a year ago, and that will be going out to bid hopefully the end of this week if the park planner gets it together. And also, as you are aware, we did not receive any sort of above base request this year for any sort of projects. Fortunately, another cycle of the Land and Water Conservation Fund grants did open. There's about $600,000 for the entire state. Colleen, Cheryl, and myself will be meeting here this week to identify a project, and we'll be submitting a grant application for that cycle. I believe it closes the end of May. They take almost about a year to award the project, but we've also had quite a bit of success for that, so we'll be able to leverage some of our funds. There's a 50% match for that. So let's see, moving on. Did everybody receive one of these? Okay, so this is a lot of movement taking place right now with the Washoe County Parks Master Plan. I had been calling it an update. However, there was a plan a plan drafted back in 1988. So we're about 30 years into that plan, and so we are working on drafting a new Parks Master Plan. There are a series of public meetings slated for next week in Spanish Springs and Sparks. We've kind of broken this up into 4 different areas, as well as the Central District, kind of that Truckee River core. That meeting will be at the Rancho San Rafael Ranch House next to the May Museum. And then down into the South Valleys area, we're going to be holding that at Bartley Ranch. All the facilities down in South Valleys were booked up for the next couple of months. So we'll be holding that at Bartley Ranch, and then also out at North Valleys, at the North Valleys Community Center. So these are back-to-back-to-back meetings. We would love for you to come and provide any sort of input on it. As you heard in this last application, we're really the easement application, we're actually looking at the public. Where do we need to be investing our funds that we do have? What does the public want? What are we missing? And so a very, very robust public process that will be moving forward throughout the summer. Number of stakeholders meetings. If we deem it necessary, we'll probably go back out to the public for another round if we need to. And then there'll be a draft master plan, which we can all review together and provide our comments on it, make sure that we capture everything, and then final preparation, approval by your board, and then ultimately the Board of County Commissioners. This will be a great plan that will focus the future development of parks within Washoe County. The final item, boy, do I have anything left? Dovetailing on Cheryl's comments regarding the North Valleys Trails project, we're getting quotes right now to actually provide a connector trail from the new ball fields that we constructed, as well as a stairwell going down those slopes to tie into there, and then also some punch list items, but those should be completed here within the next month or so. So we would be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, both of you. Great report. Any questions from commissioners?
Just a comment. Congratulations on the Hunter Creek Bridge, much needed. Yeah, great trail.
Any other comments? Go ahead.
All right, thank you. So does the park master plan, does that include trails? Because it sounds like you have another, the Trails Coalition is working on trails. Does that go into the park plan?
So the trails component is included in our open space and natural resource plan, and the park master plan basically focuses on our park facilities.
And then with FEMA, could you kind of give an update on that? But I was curious if the Washoe Valley, all the fires, and you guys put applications in for that, and then and it's like a reimbursement grant. So did all those monies get, like, did you win those? I mean, it was emergencies, and did FEMA pay some of that yet?
So for the Little Valley Fire in Washoe Valley, Washoe County, we didn't get funding to do any of the burned area emergency response restoration work. That was all cobbled together from grant funding and the use of NDF crews and however partnerships I could get to. We did a lot of volunteer work out there in Washoe Valley. As far as the flood projects from the Lemon Valley area and the flooding that we had throughout the Truckee Meadows, those were FEMA applications that we made in order to have FEMA projects to do the trails component, the Swan Lake component, and then the park component. So our intention is to move forward under the FEMA guidelines to complete the projects and then request FEMA reimbursement. They reimburse 75% of the cost. Washoe County will need to come up with 25%.
So you have to actually complete the work before that? Oh, man,
That's correct.
that's bogus.
I have a question and a comment. How much money is still in WC1?
We were just meeting this morning, and WC1, we're getting down to the limited funding, and most of that has been obligated. So the funding that we currently have in WC1, we have ongoing projects. So just a tiny little bit of money left in WC1 to spend. And then SQ1, we have about $600,000 left in SQ1, and we're actually trying to scope a project for that funding through SQ1. So just really getting down to the final components of that. The Bowers Mansion, the Hunter Creek, the Ballardini Ranch, those are all WC1 projects. So,
So it's all identified.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the comment, can we get a report, not today, but next month or month after that, on the RCT funds in each district? How much is in each district?
And we can provide you the WC1 and the SQ1 as well.
That'd be great. That'd be great. Any other questions?
Just one more. And that is just the North Valley's trails. Are those technically open to the public or not yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
We have the bridges that we're doing installations, so although people are utilizing some of those trails, they're not open to the public yet. We've got a lot of equipment out there and a lot of crews working still.
Great, thank you.
And you all do a very good job of notifying people about events and continue doing that in terms of the ribbon cuttings for any new projects, et cetera. 'Cause I'd certainly like to go, and maybe other commissioners like to be there as well. So great reports. You get very thorough, and thank you so much. It's great to see the projects getting done.
Thank you. And we have one more report. Colleen Wallace-Barnum is going to come up and give you the volunteer report.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. For the record, Colleen Wallace-Barnum, Parks Operations Superintendent. I didn't want to forget all the work Denise Evans, our volunteer coordinator, puts into the Arboretum volunteers. That's one function in our department that's extremely labor intensive, that Arboretum. And so she just wrapped up a training. Commissioner Daniel is actually one of the presenters for that series, but we basically train the volunteers pretty well, and then we require, they have two options. They can pay and a higher rate and not do any volunteer hours, or they can pay a lesser rate and do volunteer hours, and the majority actually do volunteer hours. And she secured 15 more volunteers to be in that Arboretum, which is really important for the maintenance of that area. So just wanted to make sure I highlighted that, because it's a really it's an important function that she does every year. So
Great.
yeah, that's it.
And we received a copy of the golf report. No comments necessary, but if anybody has any questions on any of the reports by staff? Thank you very much. Okay, Director's report. Are you filling that role? I am. Okay.
Okay, for the record, Colleen Wallace-Barnum, Parks Operations Superintendent. Yes, I'm standing in for Assistant County Manager Dave Solero, Director of CSD as well. So the only real item that he wanted to report on, Cheryl has already addressed, which is the approval of this SQ1 funding, the $300,000 to do implementation of the One Truckee River Plan. So that's really the only thing that went before the board on March 27th that was approved. Other than that, I think we're, nothing else to report.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Any
thanks.
questions? Commissioners' comments? Thank you. Anything?
I guess I'd just like to mention that today is a National Day of Recognition for National Service. So in our community, there are over 900 people that are working with, or they're serving as senior corps members and also AmeriCorps members. And just want to bring that to everybody's attention because the members do an incredible amount of volunteer work for us, and it makes a huge difference in our community.
Thank you. Anybody else? No? And I would echo those comments, and thank you to all the volunteers that may be listening. If they're not listening, maybe you can pass it on. You know, without them, as we well know, we would have a hard time getting everything done that we need to get done. So whether it's on trails or in the parks or clean up on the Truckee River, or whatever the case may be. So thank you. All right, I have no public comments that I'm aware of. Last item is adjournment. Meeting adjourned.